Welcome to Talkin' with Dave. Here's Dave.
Hey, how we doing out there? I hope you are doing well. I am top shelf myself as usual. Loving it. And what I'm noticing out there, how easily people are offended. People are just waiting to get offended. You know, sometimes they're getting offended on behalf of other people, but that's a new thing. Offended. Oh, that's offensive. Triggered. You know, people get offended, then people get canceled. All sorts of stuff happens. But I got to thinking, offended, what does that really mean? I think offended is another one of those words that's been hijacked. It's softer than other things, but also it's a word that's, you can't offend anybody. I know a lot of comedians that are just like, they're taking it back. They're taking back their craft because people get offended by a joke. You get canceled for that. And it can be career suicide. That's what comedians are about, being on the edge. You pick their humor and you go to laugh. You don't go to be, I'm so offended. And I think the word offended is being used for a lot of other things. I'm saying I'm unoffendable. You can't offend me. And that's not a badge of honor. I'm not bragging. I'm not saying I don't feel things, but offended, insulted, hurt, aggravated, outraged. I'm upset in some way, displeased, pissed off, whatever you want to say. But offended is a catch-all. That way I can be offended. And that branches through everything. I don't have to explain myself. That offended me. You're a bad person. And, I love you see a lot of stuff out there, but just because you're offended, I think Ricky Gervais said this, just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. And I love that. But I think we spend too much time either worrying about offending people or being offended ourselves. I mean, come on, let's toughen up. The definition of offended, it means to be hurt or upset or resentful, insulted, those things, disrespected, by inappropriate behavior. Well, who's gonna classify something as being inappropriate behavior? My goodness, anything you do, somebody can feel like it's inappropriate. If you're religious, well, that could be inappropriate to somebody else, no matter what your religion. If you're not religious, then, don't put your views on me. That's offensive. We've got to toughen up and not let people steal our words. When I released the podcast, Proud of My Pride, people thought I was coming out. But my son sent me a cool little message. I knew it all along. That's not funny. They've taken the word pride. And whoever they are, I don't think necessarily the groups behind some of these actions are actually the ones being offended. But we're going to get into that. We're going to get into all of that. But, the term snowflake is thrown around. I think a snowflake, I'll give you my definition. That's someone who is perpetually offended or hurt or overly sensitive or easily offended. You just can't handle an opposing viewpoint. That's a snowflake. To me, that's a snowflake. Other people can use whatever they want. It won't offend me. But there's some things that people that are easily offended, they're particularly sensitive to certain areas, like social injustice. Okay? Is that a general term or what? Social injustice. Topics like, and they're horrible. Racism, sexism, rights for different minorities or LGBTQ rights. Yeah, other forms of discrimination that gets that reaction. And all of those groups deserve equal rights. I believe that 100%. But the way they get attention is by being offended. I'll put other groups in here. Karens, okay? That's a general. That's, religious do-gooders. Oh, you can be offended by them. I mean, they can be offended by anything. I saw a sign, and I posted it on one of my sites, where it said, and it was a real sign that said, "Welcome to our church. We are a church of believers and tithers, but here are the rules. Women, no pants." I don't know if that meant don't wear pants or Donald Duck it around the church. I don't know. Men, no piercings, no braids. I mean, they start with come on in and tithe. Yeah, we'll take your money, but we have a dress code, or God is going to be offended. Come on, get out of here. So these social justice do-gooders, most of them are offended by proxy. The political scene now, it used to be knockdown, drag out. It was fantastic. I loved the debate back and forth. Now the political deal is, oh, you said something 20 years ago. Oh, I'm going to be offended, and I'm going to take your votes. If you're a white guy in blackface 20 years ago, it doesn't matter if it's 100 years ago, because Al Jolson made a pretty good living out of it. But Al Jolson couldn't run for office today either, could he? And those of you who don't know who Al Jolson is, I barely do. I just know he appeared in blackface a lot. But these political views now cater to offended groups. It's incredible. It's an amazing way to pull votes. And I mean, its political views can be anything from immigration to gun control, climate change. If you don't think we're going to burn up in 20 years, that's offensive. I actually heard not too long ago, it was a thing about words are violent, and it's violent. If you're not pro this, that's a form of violence, because that offends me and affects me, and my mental health is going to suffer, and that's going to lead to physical health, and it's all your fault. Whew. Then you've got the whole, tied to that, you've got language. People are offended by certain language. And this is just an everyday society. I'm outside a political group now. And then we've come up with that wonderful word, microaggressions. Snowflakes love microaggressions. Just a lot of it's just small, unintentional thing. But it can be, out in front of my house, there's a thing on the street where you lift that up and you go into the street where you can get to the civil engineering and the piping and all that. My whole life, we've called that a manhole cover. Oh, I've just offended a ton of population because it's not gender specific. Please. You've got to be kidding me. And there's so many. Just the words we use. Oh, food insecure. I just had something to eat, and about 3 hours, I'm going to be food insecure again, because it means hungry. But it sounds better if we say food insecure. That way we can address an entire group of people who are really hungry. We need to feed people that are hungry. Those that can't afford it, yes, we need to feed them. But let's call it what it is. These people are hungry. By saying food insecure, it's, I'm a little more enlightened than you are, Dave. Please, let's not use harsh terms. I said this earlier about being in the Bay Area and the commercials around pregnant people. Pregnant people. I want to know how many pregnant people come in that aren't women. And if there are none, well, can we just call them women? No, that's going to offend somebody. Oh, Dave, please. Then the whole cultural appropriation. And that's adopting elements of one culture by another. And an example of that, how crazy this is, woke. The term woke, that was brought about by the African American community to fight for civil rights. If you understand there's an inequity here, okay, and you need to fight for that, that was considered the woke movement back when it was pure and it was right and it was a good thing. That's been appropriate by a bunch of Karens and crazy radicals, But where now, leave it up to a bunch of white people to take a black term and destroy it, for the sake of feeling better, and that's almost being offended by proxy in that regard. And then, I mentioned it earlier about the humor and the comedians. Jokes have gotten to the point, and I'm not taking up for these people, but if you don't think they're fun, check them out before you go see them. How about that? If you don't think they're funny, don't go. Now, Michael Richards, he made a mistake. He admitted a mistake. He was beloved by all of America, and then he was canceled because of an indiscretion. He admitted, I shouldn't have done it. But come on, if the next comedian had been black and said the same thing, it probably would have been okay. You know, so don't be so offended. These are jokes. These are jokes. And they prey on race or gender or religion or everything. And I'm glad they're taking their craft back. I think it's a great thing. But jokes, that is ripe, offensive material for snowflakes. Then, talking about inclusion or diversity or the lack thereof, offensive. The traditional values. I think this is one. It's a tough one because either you're embracing them, that's traditional values. It's my right, whatever. I get that. That shouldn't offend somebody. Or you're rejecting them. Come on, that's in the past. We should move on. Okay. These are individual things that are your right. Why should you be offended by someone else's values? It's how they identify with things. Everything from Native Americans. Okay, they have certain things they believe in and the way they do. And no matter what you want to do, if you're not a Native American, don't be offended for them. I grew up watching the Cowboys play the Redskins every year. Cowboys and Indians. That's as American as it gets, right? Yeah. Ooh, trigger, trigger, trigger. Yeah. Change their name to the Commanders, Cowboys and Commanders. It doesn't have that same ring. I never saw a Western that pitted Cowboys and Commanders, but it wasn't the Native Americans that were getting upset. I could get Minnesota Twins. You didn't hear an outcry from the Twins around the country. Oh, wait a minute. That's derogatory. The Twins suck as a baseball team, and that's a bad light on Twins, and I'm offended. Please. It's picking and choosing. They changed the White Sox. What about the Braves? Atlanta Braves. I grew up close to the Atlanta Braves. Cincinnati Chiefs. Why are we picking and choosing? It's because it's follow the money. Follow the power. That's where it is. I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent there around traditional values. But climate change, I talked about that earlier. If you don't believe, in 1970s, if you didn't believe the world was going to freeze to death, we're going to have another ice age by the year 2000, you were considered an idiot. Then 20, 30 years later, if you don't believe we're going to burn up, well, then you're just a science denier. Come on. Climate change, don't get me started on COVID. It's almost like following mergers and acquisitions in the industry. You gotta wake up every day and look at your email to see who's bought who do you work for, and I gotta act correctly with that. I gotta be nice to everybody because I don't know who's going to be my boss. Well, how about being nice to everybody anyway? But environmental issues, you've got to believe a certain way and put your wet finger in the wind to decide which one, or you might offend somebody. The mental health. Now, this is a tough one. There's a lot more sensitivity around mental health. I will never make fun of people who have a mental health problem. Mental health problem is serious. A mental health problem is not necessarily a problem with someone controlling their emotions. And some people don't want to be fixed. They want to be pitied and catered to. If I'm not talking about you or someone you love, don't get offended. I'm not talking about you or someone you love. But I know plenty of people who just want the attention. And this is going to sound harsh, what I'm about to say. We go to a lot of festivals, and you have a lot of times a tent is there, and it's a great cause. And the cause is, it's okay to not be okay. And I agree with that. Oh, 100% agree with that. And we need to afford all these people options without regard to the cost or insurance. We got people that volunteer. We got programs to help with that, no matter what degree of emotional or mental health challenge you have. But some of these workers are so caught up in their snowflakeism. They so want to be offended to where I heard them. If you don't admit that you got a mental health problem, it's okay to not be okay. If you don't admit you have a mental health problem, you're just a denier. Something's wrong with you. I thought, I don't do these things, and it's sarcastic, and it would be mean-spirited, and I'm not going to say I've never done anything like that, but I wanted to make a shirt. It's okay to be okay, too. I agree with that. No matter what your situation, it is your situation. Don't be talked into things that didn't happen or are not the case. Got to be stronger. Got to buckle up. And then, of course, the identity politics, there's all sorts of stuff around that, and that changes. I know the Democrats of the 60s, who my parents grew up following and voting for, they would probably be considered Republicans now or conservatives. Everything's in this 24/7 social media news cycle, stir you up, prey on your emotions, get you riled up. Let me know what you're offended by, and I can control you. If I know what you're scared of or what you're offended by, yeah, you're mine. Absolutely. So that's just a few things right now that I notice that people are easily offended by. The little topics, really melts a snowflake. Actually, it empowers a snowflake. So, over the years, you got different things that have become recognized as offensive, and they change. Racial slurs, things you could say years ago, you can't now. And I'm not going to say them all, not because I'm scared, because I'm not. I just don't want certain things to turn people off. But everybody knows the N-word. Oh, I love the N-word with a couple of skits that I've seen where one guy wrote let's see who was, I think it was Mark Norman. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he sent in, wrote a skit for some TV thing, and it had the word midget in it. And he went, "Oh, you can't say midget. You can't say that. Little people, or there's other things, but you can't say midget. It's as bad as the N-word." And he said, "No, it's not as bad as the N-word, and I can prove it." And he said, "What do you mean it's not as bad as it's the N-word?" He said, "We're actually saying the word midget, okay? We're saying N-word." So that's always been there. I'm around my kids from time to time, and there's certain slang words, 70s and 80s, and it's not horrible, but we would say them. And it would, I remember my son, as a matter of fact, it's telling too much, but he was in school at one point when he moved from the South to the West Coast. And, they were talking about something, and it wasn't even in class. It was a bunch of guys talking, and went, that's gay. He didn't mean that's homosexual. He meant, that's just the vernacular. Well, he had to write a essay on why he shouldn't say that word. Are you kidding me? Well, gay started, I think first time I ever heard it was in a Christmas Carol. They took that word too. But I wrote that essay. It was wonderful, by the way. It was great. I spent the weekend doing that. We turned it in, and I went with him to turn it in. It was fantastic. But gay, good, bad, I don't know. The things you can say, I heard the other day that, I know a person that is transsexual. Back in the day, I think we called him a transvestite, back in my Rocky Horror Picture Show days. And she said, I'm a tranny. That's what I am. Everyone moved to California. I didn't know what to call people from Latin America. I didn't want to offend them. Really, in my heart, I didn't want to offend them. So I asked the guy, what should I call you? From Mexico, a Latin American, a Hispanic. What should I call you? He went, "I'm a Mexican. I'm from Mexico." All right, cool. Let me know. I'll do it. Because I don't want to offend you. I'm not going to let my life be crippled by it. But there's different racial slurs or, things that, and I'm going to, N-word, I found over the years that it's not Oriental. You don't call somebody a Chinaman. You can't call somebody a redskin. I never call anybody a redskin. Some of these terminologies for people are so long, like the person that calling, and this is not having to do with race, but the person that said pregnant people later used something called she referred to her mother. Oh, no, you can't have it both ways. If those aren't mothers, yours is not a mother. It's the pregnant person who birthed you. Just take away mother. And another thing, I was in an airport recently, and I was sitting adjacent to someone who had transitioned. It was a lady now, and she had a dog. Well, she made it clear that she was, her pronouns, but she kept talking to her dog, referring to it as she and her little princess, and had it dressed up in a little dress. Cute little thing, like a Yorkie type dog. Had little bows in its hair and a little dress on it, and kept referring to it as she. And I was, the snarky guy wanted to say, well, how do you know? How do you know it's a she? Has she chosen that? Because she was a militant as far as how to address her and what to do. Poor flight attendant had a good time with that. By that, I mean a bad time. Other terms, half-breed. Oh, Cher had a song called Half-Breed. It was on the radio. I think it was a top 10 hit. The name of the song was Half-Breed. Can't do that anymore. I didn't know you couldn't refer to Eskimos as Eskimos. Well, I didn't know that. I don't know any Eskimos. I don't. But nope. That's bad. It's got to be indigenous people of the Arctic. Oh, stop it. There's, religious slurs. Oh, religious slurs, depending on the religion now. You can't offend Muslims. But I didn't even know some of these. I'm going to read them. Religious slurs. A kike, a mick, a papist, a heathen, and an infidel. Now, I'd heard heathen and infidel. I've been called a heathen a few times growing up. Infidel, infidel. I think I heard that on a Western or something. You can't say these. They're anti-Semitic. They're anti-Irish Catholic. What is a papist? It's Catholics during times of religious conflict. Anti-Semitic is the big thing now. You either have to be or you can't be. You got your group. Which are you? Okay. You're Baptist? We don't know where to put you. Pick a side. That's going to bring the Baptists and the Jews together. I know. That's offensive. Bite me. And you got different things like regional slurs. Yankees. Damn Yankees came to the South. Hillbilly. Hillbilly. Who calls people hillbilly anymore? Okay, we'll go. Hillbilly, redneck. I'm a redneck. Yep. White trash. I'm probably white trash. One thing I didn't like being called was a hick. I don't know why. I'm not offended, but somebody called me said I had a hick accent. I was like, wait a minute. I was actually trying to enunciate there. Please. Gypsies. When's the last time you saw some gypsies? I don't know. Can we replace gypsies with carny folk? I think that might be the closest thing we have to gypsies now. And I love carny folk. Please. An okie. Who would get upset by being called an okie? But Merle Haggard had a song about that. And then racial slurs. I don't mean racial slurs. I mean sexual words or slurs. I'll just run through them. I'm going to say them. Get ready. Don't say these words. And some of these are words that, my kids, the F word for gay men. You can say lesbian all day, but you can't say the full F word. And we even use FAG, fag, as a, like the non-gay term for things. It's just, it's a cigarette somewhere. I never excused that. But, apparently the Gen Xers and 20 and 30-year-old people, no. What are you doing? What are you doing? That's crazy. For lesbians, don't call them a dyke. Don't do it. I mean, I don't think I would just because I just don't think I would. Tranny, I've learned that that's okay. I just learned that that's okay. Now I'm hearing it's highly offensive. I'm sorry. A sissy. A sissy. You know what that is? That's an effeminate or weak man. I don't think that's fair. I know a lot of heterosexual, a lot more heterosexual than me. But wait, I don't mean it that I don't mean it that way. But they're, they got some female mannerisms. I remember that was something that you called somebody instead of calling them gay. They're sissy. Oh no. And then queer. This says you can't say queer anymore. What are we doing? Who's making these rules? See why it's so hard to not offend certain people? So I'm to the point to where if I knowingly offend you, I'm sorry you're offended, and I may be sorry I did that because it's unintentional. I don't mean to, but the rules are changing so fast. And I think context matters. I believe that. I mean, if you know how I'm referring to something and you know if I'm trying to hurt you or not, we actually had a talk this weekend about people using the wrong word in a sentence that turned it from a normal thing into something very inappropriate, but they didn't know what that word meant. Probably shouldn't have used it, but context matters. Also, you've got to understand language evolves. I am so tired of hearing people, and I think cancellation is almost over. That's a phase we went through. Hopefully woke will be over and it can go back to what my African-American friends meant for it to be. I think we made a lot of strides, but it's not a political program. But I think it evolves to the point to where if you know somebody, all right, you know what they meant. You may want to correct them so they don't do that in the wrong setting. And if you don't know somebody, well, then why are you offended? We need to have cultural sensitivity. Yes. We need to evolve as much as possible. Yes. But we can't lose control of our language and our behavior and who we are just to keep from offending a few people. And in the grand scheme of things, it is just a few people. Look at the backlash on Hollywood right now. Wow, the hypocrisy is overwhelming. I love it when they fly across the world, literally from California to France, to get a piece of cheesecake so they can brag about it. And then in the next thing, hey, we're climate conscious here. Hello. Emissions. And then if they buy the credits, I love Al Gore buying carbon credits or whatever. He still polluted. He just threw money at it. The hypocrisy. Anyway, so the thing, why are some people, how did we get here? Why are some people more offended by things than others? And I think there's some real reasons, some cultural reasons. I mentioned it earlier with social issues, the awareness. People have a platform now. You hear it more, a 24-hour news cycle around increased social awareness and what's going on, social justice. You have all these groups with racism, sexism, all kinds of discrimination. I don't believe in discrimination. I also don't believe in DEI. I believe get the best person for the job, but give everybody a chance. Let's look at them. The social media, and I'm back and forth. I'm not going to make any bold statements because I don't want to back out on it. But I tell you, social media is a pariah. It's horrible because it has many good things about it. But also, we know most of social media is being ran with an agenda. Most of these people on social media, the vast majority, they're not people. They're bots. And they're shifting things. That's not conspiracy theory either. I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. But that's what they are. Look at the latest thing with Alexa when asked political questions. Very slanted one side. And they said, oh, sorry, that was just a glitch. Well, it's always a certain glitch, isn't it? So social media and our dependence for 15 minutes of fame, that's a big thing that can exponentially entice those who want to be offended. I think there's a big shift in cultural values, just values, morality in general. They say the new morality is the old immorality. Woo! Sounded pretty straight laced. King James version with that, didn't I? No, but it changes, and I think part of that is due to a stern commitment to uphold the values. Values are going to offend somebody. They're going to upset somebody. They're going to rub somebody the wrong way. So if you stand for them or you don't stand for them, and now it's amplified. The whole politics, the cancel culture. I tell you one thing that I think, to go back to the social media, one thing that really stirs the pot is the drastic decline in face-to-face interaction. I can tell you, people get so brave behind the keyboard. They get brave, they lash out, and trust me, it is a huge venue or platform for the offended by proxy crowd. I love it. If I am in a good mood, I go in and mess with people a little bit. I love the the posts people do with just to start a fight. Here's a glass of water, and people go nuts. Or here's a stick. And just, a lot of people are having fun, making fun of those that get offended. But during that course of the conversation, they do get mad. It's great. And I love it. People, the clickbait, I read through the clickbait. I try not to comment, because then I'm part of the algorithm that's going to pull more my way. But just people will, say something, or they'll ask a question. Name top 5 bands of all time. You're just picking a fight. Or so-and-so is the best singer of all time. Hard stop, period, of end of story. And then just poof, the whole world. And some people are offended. I'd like to see these people. I don't want to see these people. They're probably in their mama's basement in their underwear. But I don't want to see that. But that face-to-face, that wouldn't happen. Face-to-face, that would not happen. You can go to the biggest metal show you want, and it's a debate back and forth. Or, yeah, you're probably right, dude. Or at least top 10. They don't talk that way, but that's the way I talk when I'm talking like them. But I guarantee you wouldn't say the stuff face-to-face you do online, because you don't have the guts. You've got keyboard cojones. That's what you have. So, the whole online stuff, first of all, there's no real ramifications other than your weak mental state that can cause you to be offended and upset and all of that. It's just somebody typing. But what it does, it destroys the other parts of communication. Body language, tone, all that stuff. It can make you interpret what somebody means or what somebody says. Those people who depend on, text or the typed word to communicate with people, horrible. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be misunderstood as well. That lack of face-to-face communication, even FaceTime or TikToks or Snapchats or whatever is going on, at least we can see and hear, your facial expressions and your body language and all that. But that's going away, and it's creating a generation of people who don't know how to communicate and can stir you up. They know how to push your buttons. There's algorithms that will pull in. What are the buzzwords for this group? Pro and con. They kill you. And then the whole generational differences. I'm a hip dude. All I got to do is hang out with my kids who are just, 20-something years younger than me, and I find out how unhip I am. And we could probably hang out with some people in their teens to show my kids how unhip they are. So you got generational differences that rev up some of this stuff. One thing that speaking of algorithms and social media and all that, they have things, they're called echo chambers. And what they do is they will repeat certain viewpoints over and over in different ways. They'll have different demographics, different regions, but they'll echo a belief that will make someone think that's the way. Oh, it's growing. I need to either be this way, and they'll conform, or oh no, the end is near, doom and gloom, and they'll get offended or be hurt or what. But don't fall prey to any of this. I'll get to how we can overcome some of this in a bit, but then the whole mental health side of things. There's so much focus on that. I think I even heard recently that, and I don't want to talk politics, but I have to, because if somebody's going to be offended, they should be by this. They're reaching out to the more effeminate and less manly males to get their votes. I think they called them the low testosterone males. Hello. If you want to be offended, there you go. It's from a 60-year-old man with low T right here. I'm kidding. Doesn't work on me. But that they're being offensive in the way that they're approaching a social group. And they're the ones that are getting offended the most. What do you think about that? Yeah, so we're doing ads and echo chambers that would appeal to more effeminate or low T men just so we'll get their vote. So see, this is how they're using. This is how succumbing to being offended can impact you, can impact others' approaches on you, approaches that are proven to win, by the way. I talk to, there's a lot of groups, people being offended by proxy. These are your virtue signalers. A lot of them are pretending to be offended to get attention. We know that. And that's being offended by proxy. I'm upset on behalf of the American Indians because of red-skinned potatoes are growing in popularity, and those kind of potatoes are racist, and I think they should ban. We should go to more of a russet potato to not offend the indigenous Americans. Oh, what? Russet potatoes offend the Irish? Oh, I think we should do away with potatoes. Maybe go to a sweet potato. Nope, sweet offends. Oh, okay, well, no more potatoes. I'm going to turn, I'm going carb free. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. And some of the tactics they use, like allyship. There's another woke word, allyship. And I hate this for people who genuinely want to help and support somebody. Maybe you're not the right spokesperson. Maybe you're not. You can speak out about offensive language or offensive behavior, but if you're offended by proxy, you really don't have the credibility to do that. If you want to talk about racism, I don't think I'm the spokesperson. I'm sorry. If you're going to talk about the war of northern aggression, okay, I'm probably your guy. We didn't lose that war. We ran out of time. That's why we keep reenacting it. But you've got a lot of different things around, a lot of social pressures around being offended. We should be offended. Aren't you offended? And I love it when they go to demonstrations and ask, what's the main thing that you're fighting for here? They don't know. What problem do you really have with the other side? What would make all this okay? I don't know. I mean, you got the feminists that aren't standing up for those victims of the Me Too movement, and then they're walking around with vagina hats calling everybody else out of their mind. I don't get it. Some of you are offended by, or just maybe it's misplaced. I tell you what gets on my nerves is the virtue signaling. These are those people that are getting all stirred up and want you to be stirred up too, just for attention. Yeah, we get this a lot with the HOAs, with the Karens, with the people posting themselves during volunteer work, with those people standing up for something. They're hashtag blessed on Sunday morning and partying like a Kennedy on Saturday night. But, oh, here's a picture of us at Easter Sunday services. Okay, that's virtue signaling. Some people just do stuff in public. You know, the most virtuous people you see are those who do things no one ever knows about. They don't need the attention. They're not doing it for attention. They're doing it to help. I know you get people, and some of these people I saw recently, you know, Bon Jovi working at a soup kitchen that he donated to. I think David Grohl did something like that. You know, good for them, but the camera was there for sure. I made sure of that. And then you have other people that are donating. Nobody knows who it was. It's an anonymous gift. It's a, you know, you hear later all these celebrities, all the money they gave to a certain thing. You know, after they die, they donated or left a certain amount of their estate to this. That's not virtue signaling. You know, just that shallow, look at me, look how good I am, look what I did. Yeah, they're preying on the social behaviors. And if you don't like that, well, they're offended. What? You're questioning my motives? I'm not questioning your motives. I'm not paying attention. So, drive you crazy. And then those, you know, pretending to be offended to get attention or pity, acting like a victim. That's why people do it. They need that support or that attention, or look at me, look how good I am, look how great I am, or look how bad I've got it. Come on. Those people are preying on your ability to be manipulated, join them in their offended nature, or be persecuted because you don't care enough and they're better than you. Shake it off, Dave. Shake it off. So, I want to get to the reasons why I'm not offended. You can't offend me. You can't. You can make me think. You may be able to hurt my feelings, or make me think, I want you to like me, but if you don't, that's okay. But it's, I really wish that had gone a different way. But here are 10 reasons why you need to choose not to be offended. First of all, it's a personal choice. You're personally empowered to the point to where you don't need someone else to approve of you. You're in control of your own emotions. Don't give that power to somebody else. You can't take it back once you do. They have to give it back. You know that. I'm not going to give you control over me, so I'm not going to allow you to offend me. All right? Second thing is your perspective. What seems offensive to one person, that might be okay, but you don't have to be offended by it. Understanding the difference. You pick any minority, they have a different perspective. And it offends them, but it doesn't have to offend me. That would get rid of a lot of the being offended by proxy. Yeah, understanding the different perspectives. You're not taking it personally. That's what being offended is. You're taking it personally. Developed a tough skin. They call it thick skin. All right, thick skin. Yeah, I'm tough. I can take it. I can tell you some of the groups I've traveled in, being in front of a ton of people saying unpopular things. You better have a tough skin, or you're going to be curled up in the corner sucking your thumb by the end of it. But to be resilient, that's why I say that over and over. Know what you believe in and be resilient. The 10 undisputable beliefs that I have, there's probably more, but there's the 10 in the podcast and O-Talk. That makes me resilient. You believe something different? Okay. That's great. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just letting you know, here's where I am. Another thing, it's not talking out of both sides of my mouth, but having empathy. Understanding, when we talked about perspective a minute ago, understand that. Look, you're coming from a different place, and I get that. I get that. It's not on me. It's not my battle. Anything I can do for you personally, okay? But I'm not gonna be offended with you on that one because I got a different perspective. I still have empathy, and I feel bad for you, and hopefully you'll get to a good spot. Another thing that doesn't offend me, or a reason I can't be offended, you got to focus on that person's intent or that group's intent. A lot of times they're not doing something to harm you. You just overlook it. If there are certain rules or certain regulations, if it's they tell a joke that offends you, that's not their purpose. Focus on the intent. Be able to overlook that instead of, oh, let me gather that in. Oh, yeah, this is going to be good. I'm going to be hurt on this later. It's going to get me a lot of attention. Place. Some of this goes back to emotional intelligence. I think, the more I think about it, a lot of it is. And emotional intelligence, those are buzzwords. It's a great book. And I think it's a good practice to be able to, okay, how do I handle things? We don't get upset that easy. My emotions are neither super high or super low. How do I take it? How do I process things emotionally? Having that's gonna drastically reduce the likelihood of you getting offended by something. Then, avoiding conflict. Now, I know you've heard me say you can't get through it till you get in it. Yeah, that's true. I'll stand by that. And conflict resolution. But a lot of this, it's not conflict. It's not conflict. People perceive it as conflict. A lot of tough guys are, well, you do that, I'll kick your ass. Please. Come on. I'm not offended. I can avoid unnecessary conflict. I don't want to escalate it. Sometimes, I tell you, a lot of strong personality, sometimes it gets in a little bit of a pissing contest to where you try to one-up them. You go back and forth and you escalate that. Let me tell you something. It's not worth your time with these people who seek to offend, because no matter if you make your case or not, they won. They got you. They got you. So you've got to have self-confidence to avoid being offended. A confident person is going to be a lot less likely to be shaken by something negative or controversial or contrary to their beliefs. It's good. Hey, I can agree to disagree. I've got a ton of friends that may even be offended by this podcast, but they know me. They know my intent. But there are things that we don't agree on. We usually don't talk about them. Occasionally we will, usually in private, not in public. And that's okay. We can still be friends. How about that? Two people disagreeing we're not offended. We just disagree. I think that's the definition of an adult. I don't know. Also, there's a lot to be said for having a peace of mind about something. I look for that. I don't like to be stirred. I don't like to be torn up. And so I try to reduce that as much as possible. Something's wrong with my kids or my wife or my dog or close family. Yeah, I get stirred up on that because that's worth it. I just choose not to be offended. Maintain some sort of, center here around what's important and what's not. Don't major in the minors. And that reduces your stress by a ton. And then I've said it over and over, and I'll continue to say it till I'm blue in the face. Focus on positive relationships. Surround yourself with positive people. These people know you. They like you, or they wouldn't be hanging around with you. And there's going to be less conflict. People that are around me a lot, they're not easily offended. Trust me. And they know I'm not either. So we can be ourselves. It's such a freeing environment. And be around positive people. Be around like-minded people. But if unlike-minded people come along, know what you're getting. And be an adult. That's a lot of the reasons. I remember early on when I was growing, I grew up in church. And I remember at one point I got married. I might have had a kid or two. That's probably offensive just to refer to my kids as a kid or two. but I don't remember exactly when it was. But there was a business meeting, and there was a vote. And apparently, I've been in this church since I was 3 weeks old. And there was a vote on something, and I voted one way. And I didn't, I just looked around when people were voting the other way. I looked to see, okay, how are we doing here? Did my side win or whatever? And they do whatever. It was on the color of some carpet, which has split churches before. Well, I voted one way, and afterwards, this woman comes up, and apparently she had said something. I wasn't paying attention, and voted the other way. And she came up to put it in my face. She said, I'm sorry if I offended you, David, but I've been in this church a long time, and how I vote carries a lot of weight. Offended me. And at that point, I thought, what a venue for this. That's what it is. It's heaven is around tenure. These are the same kind of people who used to bring a lot of kids in on nights to vote, because if you're a church member, your vote counts, no matter if you're 3 or 300, like this lady was. And she said, and I just looked at her, and I knew who she was, and I said, I used her name, but I said, I'm sorry, I didn't even notice how you voted, and I wasn't paying attention to anything that you said. And by the way, you can't offend me, because your opinion doesn't mean that much to me. Because I knew this woman was a sneaking, conniving, blah, blah, blah. And that's when I think this journey began for me. Not being offended. You can't offend me. We can disagree. I'm pretty confident. I mean, after all these years, I'm one of the old men now. I know what I believe. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. And it's okay. It's okay, the overlap. So I encourage you, notice those who are getting offended by proxy, who are getting offended for attention, who are trying to offend you for a reaction. Those who are easily offended are weak, they're malleable, and they are puppets for the strong. Remember that. So be self-confident. Know what you believe in. Ask questions. Get more information. The more educated you are around things, the less malleable you are, and the less you're going to be offended. So let's stay strong. Giddy up. Okay. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it so much. I did the video this time because I wanted you to see the look on my face when I talked about this topic. So let me know what you think about it, what you disagree about, what you agree about. David@otalks.com or OWD@otalks.com. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. YouTube videos out there. We got more coming. Got merch behind me. You can see that, Not With That Attitude, or the Giddyup t-shirt. Got another one that says Top Shelf and some hats on the way. I'm not selling, but you can buy. So, but most of all, thanks for O Talking with Dave, and giddy up.